Hello everyone, this is Mr. Obvious, and today on boards.4chan.org/poll.com, specifically thread 224030937. This is on Politically Incorrect. Here we see Annan says, Overstock CEO confirms involvement in Russia hoax. Today, Overstock.com CEO stepped down after his August 12th memo confirming involvement in the deep state's plan to take Trump down with a hoax about Russian collusion that was built for stupid people, gained traction with stupid people, and ultimately failed. You heard that right, folks. A CEO of a website confirmed that he was part of the deep state and he lost his job over this? What is going on? I know we live in clown world, but this is on another level. Here's a little snippet from Global News. Overstock.com CEO comments on the deep state, withholds further comment. But before we look into this insane story, my entire channel has had monetization disabled. To combat this, you can join me on Patreon or Subscribestar. There's also PayPal and Bitcoin options. Sharing the video also helps as websites are deranking and deboosting red-pilled content. Now let's take a look at this story. Annan says, today Overstock.com CEO stepped down after his August 12th memo confirming involvement in the deep state's plan to take Trump down with a hoax about Russian collusion. Starting in 2015, I, operating under the belief that I was helping legitimate law enforcement efforts, assisted in what is known as the Clinton investigation and the Russian investigation. In fact, I am the notorious missing chapter 1 of the Russia investigation. It was my third time in my life. I helped the men in black. The first was when my friend Brian Williams was murdered, and the second was when I helped the Men in Black shake up Wall Street a decade ago. Unfortunately, this third time turned out to be less about law enforcement and more about political espionage conducted against Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, and to a lesser degree, Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz. Not only does this guy admit that the Men in Black exists, not only does this guy admit that the deep state exists, he admits that he helped a Russian collusion hoax and a coup to take over the United States of America and stop Donald J. Trump from becoming president. And people were stupid enough to buy it. Now those people vote Democrat. In July 2018, I put the pieces together. I immediately, last July, came forward to a congressman and a senior military officer to the Department of Justice this April, and upon my Omaha rabbi reminding me of my duty as a citizen late this June. To a small set of journalists this summer, Miss Carter was among them. Her 2 stories are accurate. Having confirmed Miss Carter's 2 articles, I have fulfilled those citizenship obligations to which my rabbi reminded me. I speak no more on the subject. Instead, having lived in places lacking rule of law, and having witnessed the consequences of its absence, I plan on sitting back and watching the United States Department of Justice reestablish rule of law in our country. What did he mean by this? So in before nothing ever happens, things are happening. Now this is actually kind of insane. So here in Annan asks for a second source. Turns out, there are more sources. This is a real story. Here on CNBC, Overstock CEO Patrick Bryan resigns following deep state comments, stock rises. So he resigned after making comments about his role in the deep state. Last week, he released a statement about his role in the federal government's investigation into the 2016 election. The company said it will appoint Jonathan Johnson as interim CEO. So this guy actually did the right thing. He felt guilty. He decided that damage had been done to the American justice system and that he needed to make it right. So he admitted to what he did, and then he resigned. Perhaps not. I'm not sure what his true motivations are. He does say here, thus while I believe that I did what was necessary for the good of the country, for the good of the firm, I am in a sad position of having to sever ties with Overstock. So most likely they made him step down after making such insane comments. Damn, I wish I had known. That would have been a good time to buy Overstock stock. Bryan claimed he was romantically involved with Maria Butina, the Russian operative who used her National Rifle Association activism to infiltrate American politics. She was later sentenced to 18 months in prison. What is this, a goddamn movie? I want to live like this. I'm gonna bang a Russian chick. Okay, so he did leave some advice for people, apparently. Here are key points from a letter that you should know as the shareholder. I think the blockchain revolution will reshape key social institutions. We will have designed and breathed life into perhaps the most significant blockchain, Keiritsu, in the world, a network of blockchain firms seeking to revolutionize identity, land, governance, rule of law, potential, capital, blah, 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 blah. I hope the government keeps their dirty hands out of the blockchain and out of crypto. Okay, the last thing I want is these goddamn corporations and companies ruining everything like they always do. Retail, we face a competitor who by the end of the year will have lost close to $3 billion. Blah, blah, blah. The rest is pretty much just gushing. What the fuck? The integration of Skynet, Camelia's name for her AI creation, continues across marketing and sourcing, and it augments decisioning. We discover many ways to find continuous gains. Yeah, we're headed towards a dystopia. It's gonna get worse before it gets better in regards to technology. I swear to God. Why did you name it Skynet? You want to take over the world, don't you? I found the supervillain, folks. Anyways, let's go back to the thread. This is insane. We not only do we have a confirmation that basically the Men in Black exist, it's not hard to say that there's also a deep state. This is insane. Everyone is calling it deep state comments. Okay, so this is funny. Here Annan says, he was dating a Russian cutie, and he, being an informant, requested the FBI's permission to date her. The feds greenlighted the relationship, then proceeded to arrest her on some BS charges so they could use her as fodder in the Russia thing, basically calling her a spy. The CEO is pissed because he was used, and his GF is in Florida prison because of him awaiting deportation. Annan says, Deep State planned to take Trump down with a hoax about Russian collusion. I guess saying Rothschild would lead to lawsuits and accidents. And here's a WikiLeak. It basically shows the Rothschilds were grooming Clinton for presidency before she even launched her candidacy. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Rothschilds are basically the World Bank. They are rich, filthy rich. They control some of the biggest banks and monies in the world. Dirty people. They don't do anything wrong themselves, but yeah, they're kind of like that, like in a fantasy story. They're the guys with all the gold, and they make loans to both sides, that sort of thing. He appeared on Fox News, FMR Overstock CEO. I was part of political espionage. So either this guy is LARPing, or this is how CEOs operate now. They're part of the government. If that doesn't concern you, it should. Here Annan says, so this CEO had some level of government security clearance, was used for spying, divulged that he was screwing with a Russian agent that the feds already knew everything about. Feds wanted to use him to gather information and aid her to make connections with Republican candidates. Peter Strzok with the CEO's contact. It was only this all blew up that he made the connections of his own involvement with regards to Donald Trump. Every person who was used to spy on was indicted to sully their reputations. Yeah, pretty dirty stuff. Never work with the government. They will screw you over. Okay, apparently, according to Annan, his rabbi is Warren Buffett, who isn't really a rabbi. He was just using that phrase, but not literally. Annan says, this shit is huge. He said he was ordered by Peter Strzok. He says they spied on political candidates, including Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. The rabbi he's referring to is Warren Buffett. He starts crying, saying he is somehow responsible for the mass shootings. He says he was bribed $1 billion to keep quiet. He said they were going to destroy him if he went public. Holy fuck. I gotta say, I mirror that sentiment there. Ooh, here's a really interesting part. Annan says, they could have stopped the Russian agent from getting in with the Trump campaign, and they knew it was happening. But they let it continue so they could turn it into an impeachment scandals later if Trump won. That's the bottom line for foreigners who don't follow our real housewives of DC politics. So yeah, our organizations, our government is so fucking corrupt. It's so dirty. They don't play by the rules. They play by their own set of rules. You know, laws for us, but not laws for them. Rules for thee, but not for me. Oh, here's an interesting comment by Annan. In the interview on Fox with Martha, I was eating dinner through most of it, but they started throwing up photos of the Russian agent. And I could have sworn I saw her years ago, thread after thread. Not about her being an agent, just the fact she was pretty much at every political event ever. So here's a likely story. He was talking about Warren Buffett. What surprises me is that he was in something. I guess he is in full panic mode, so he is some sort of Xanax or Valium. At least he sounded like it. Calling the other reporter a fool for asking the question was also weird. This entire speech sounded as if he was scared out of his mind, and that this was some sort of insurance policy. Preemptive strike performance. So this is pretty insane. This is straight up proof that the government and the deep state exist, that there is a Men in Black, that they enlist the help of rich CEOs to spy on America and subvert our country. This is alarming. This is... I want justice, but Lord knows there's not much of a chance of that. This is one of the most insane stories I've read in a while, but that's merely the obvious. Well, that's all for now, folks. What do you think about this story? Do you believe that the CEO is not just crazy and that he actually did work with the deep state to pull off this Russian collusion hoax? Be sure to let me know. Now, as many of you well know, my channel is completely demonetized. That is why you can join me on Patreon. There are different tiers. You can choose whatever you wish. Doing so will get you access to Fight Club, a private Discord server. There's also PayPal and Bitcoin, as well as Subscribestar. Oh, and you can check out my affiliate link, Magnetic MacBook Pro covers. Protect yourself from hackers and spies. As always, thanks for watching. This has been Mr. Obvious, and I'll see you all next time.